So, welcome back to Far Right Watch, the show that breaks the tedium that you may be forced to endure if you experience something like the Peter Kay comeback tour or the Mrs. Brown's Boys Christmas special, as we keep coming back week after week with the fresh stuff, solely by virtue of the fact that no one is doing anything to temper the far right or indeed far right disinformation. And so week in, week out, we are fortunate enough to have a fresh batch of bullshit for you, but more importantly me, to make sense of. Bullshit like
Merry Christmas, London!
Ironically groomed child, young Bob, who's been seen taking the word of God to the streets over the last week, in between supporting campaigns for mass deportations. Oh, God. No. Can we not do young Bob this week, please? You know, I think it'd be a new rule, like terms and conditions. Part of our code of conduct on this channel is that we don't go after teenagers. A clause I imagine some members of the EDL might do well to observe.
Now, I'm very proud to admit that 2 years ago in secondary school, I was depressed and suicidal.
Jesus Christ, Bob, keep it light.
I had idolized myself, fell into the sin of atheism, and I indulged in sinful activities that led to my mental and physical health in dismay.
Cool. Sounds like a hell of a party.
Now, the one thing I have come to reject when it comes to the commercialization of Christmas is this: that Christmas is not about gift giving, but receiving a gift.
Is that right? It's not about It's not about giving gifts. It's about what you're getting.
Christmas is not about gift giving, but receiving a gift.
I'm not sure you got that round the right way, Bob.
And despite attempts of ripping out the Christian roots.
And just incidentally, this is the shittest stand-up set I've seen.
Because if it wasn't for Jesus Christ, I wouldn't be here. If it wasn't for
Jesus Christ, he wouldn't be here. There you go. There's an advert for atheism if ever you needed one.
Right. Watch.
Meanwhile, away from literal manic street preachers to tragic street maintainers, as we observe the predictable death of one Paul Lumber. Oh, dear, who was that? Well, he was a former Bristol football hooligan who had served multiple prison sentences who died last week after falling from a lamppost attempting to rehang his flags. Right. Well, yes, highly predictable. In fact, I think we even said on this show that somebody was going to end up falling to their death doing that sort of thing, given how much of these movements are street level and grassroots and unofficial, and the people behind them who are coordinating them all probably think that things like risk assessments are woke. But three things to take from this story before we move on, though. First and foremost, condolences to the family, obviously. Second, it's interesting that the deceased had such a well-documented history of football violence behind him, though. And that's not to speak ill of him. He's spoken about his history of football violence. In fact, he published books about it, by all accounts. But it further evidences this crossover between the modern far right and those hues and tones of historic football firms. It's why at a Tommy Robinson speaking event, you will hear chants like, Keir Starmer's a wanker. It's very football-y.
We want our country back.
We want our country back. We want our country back.
And the third thing to take from this is radicalization kills. This guy had a lot of anger built up, by all accounts, about the government, about the establishment, about its effects on working class communities. But through misfortune or exploitation, he was steered towards the far right. And ultimately, their movement, their initiatives, clearly not deliberately, but it was, inarguably, that stuff that got him killed. So yes, radicalization does kill. That should be the lesson, though I don't suppose that that will be the one that they take from this. Instead, what's it going to be? What's the lesson that the far right are going to take from this story? Like, what is it? Is it, he died for his country. That's going to be it, isn't it? Oh my God, is that real? Is that, like, somebody's bothered to make that? Jesus. Man dies after falling from lamppost putting up a Union Jack flag. Well, he died for his country. Bless him. With every flag he raised, he helped lift patriotism in this country. Did he, though? The first martyr. Anyway, we do, of course, not celebrate death on this channel. Instead, we offer condolences and seek to remind people of the dangers of extremism. And that's why, out of respect for the deceased, but also in recognition of the results of the risk assessment, flags will be flying at half-mast for the foreseeable. Elsewhere in the festering swamp of untamed extremism, concerned parents swap their PTA badges for terrorist-style get-up as balaclava-wrapped men make a series of angry demands to a largely oblivious audience. Not that dissimilar to an actual PTA meeting then, really?
Welcome to Great Britain, where the working man lifts the country. He works, he pays, he sacrifices. Hotels filled with migrants, all bills covered, 3 meals, warm rooms.
Okay, so these guys have obviously bought into the idea that they and their friends and their colleagues work hard, but scrounging immigrants take all of the winnings. So let's just clear this up. The United Kingdom is a country or nation with about 65 to 70 million people in it. Now, when you're dealing with that amount of people, 30,000 economic migrants or refugees, whatever you want to term them, that should be easily manageable. Like half the country are working, earning money through NI and tax. There should be enough left there to manage your international responsibilities to take a certain percentage of asylum seekers, refugees, people fleeing war and famine.
3 meals, warm rooms, paid by the man eating cold beans after a night shift.
Right, but 30,000 asylum seekers or 70,000, like however many we're talking about now, they are not the reason that this guy is eating cold beans, if indeed he is eating cold beans after a night shift. He's eating cold beans because, what? Because his job sucks and he's being taxed too high, right? So let's just play with that for a second, shall we? He is being paid, let's say sort of manual labour work, construction site stuff. Let's say he's being paid just like modestly more than minimum wage. Let's say it's like £20 an hour, right? Which means he's earning something like, I don't know, between 30 and 40k a year. Now, he loses approximately half of that through taxes of varying sorts, from income tax and national insurance through to fuel duty and VAT. So he's already lost half of his income to tax, and then he can't afford a mortgage. And so he's forced into the rental sector, and rents, we all know what's happening with rents. They're skyrocketing, and bills, that basically takes all of the rest of his money. So what's going on with that? Well, taxes are only as high as they are because of the national debt. But that is due to a lack of growth, being able to pay down the debt, but also due to over-borrowing by different governments, different parties over the last 20 to 30 years. We talked about this ad nauseum, but like if you want to get the national debt down, you need monstrous growth. We can't have monstrous growth outside of the single market. If you want to grow the economy domestically, you probably need a fucking shit ton of immigrants. Or if you can't do all of that, then you need to monstrously tax the super wealthy. You need to go after their assets. But if you don't want to do any of that, then you're kind of fucked. If you think that taxing wealth, rejoining the single market, socializing childcare, if to you, like when I say all of those things, you dismiss them as like, oh, that's leftist fucking rubbish, you bloody communist, then in the absence of other solutions, you just got to deal with the output of abandoning those policies. But whether you have 30,000 economic migrants in army barracks, or you subscribe to the idea that migrants are the reason that you're sitting there eating cold beef, I can promise you, if there were mass deportations tomorrow, if they flew 50,000 economic migrants out of the UK, your life would still suck. Finally, we deliberately avoid the topic of the Bondi Beach shootings. Partly because listening to Farage ribbit about anti-Semitism is ridiculous, considering only last week he was calling all those who accused him of precisely that leftists and liars. Like, I'm serious. He's all up there on your news feeds at the moment, politicking and point scoring, like anti-Semitism is a serious business and the Labour government aren't taking it seriously. I'm like, they are not taking it seriously. Okay.
Genuinely horrendous. You realise, actually, the threat to the Jewish people is everywhere.
Like, hold up, lads, with your cool heads and hot takes. Mr. Gas them all here wants to get some shit off his chest.
The Reform UK leader used to sing anti-Semitic songs. And
he kept on about gassing the Jews.
The threat to the Jewish people is everywhere.
At 16, 17, 18, and you're a man at 18, you're technically an adult, was truly appalling.
The threat to the Jewish people is everywhere.
Of course, the other reason we won't be covering this story, just like we didn't go after teenager young Bob earlier, is the predictable nature of right-wing reactions. You see, the man that attacked the other guy, the terrorist, the guy that was shooting, disarmed him, took the gun off him. That guy himself was a Muslim, right? The hero of the day turned out to be a Muslim guy. And so as much as this is a story about violence and we should respect and mourn those who lost their lives and feel for their families, we should also use this as an opportunity to shine a light on the fact that not everybody that arrives in a Western nation of Middle Eastern heritage is themselves a terrorist or a threat to women and girls or whatever. Sometimes they're just a half-decent guy who loves the country that they've built a life in and wants to keep everybody safe as well. But in a timeline and indeed an ecosystem that is reliant on bullshit, fear and division, that is a story that must be suppressed. So instead we got reports that 2,000 Jewish people were gunned down. It was nowhere near that. Then came omissions of the guy's name and identity and religion from the President of the United States, among many, many others.
It's been a very, very brave person, actually.
Very brave person.
Who went and attacked frontally.
Yeah? What was his name? Any other details about him, Donnie?
One of the shooters, and saved a lot of lives, so very brave person who's right now in the hospital, pretty seriously wounded. So great respect to that.
Great respect to that. That who?
So great respect to that man that did that.
Oh, just an ambiguous, faceless, nameless man person. Like, it must be so fucking weird being a Muslim in a Western country these days.
I did see some video of an heroic Australian, taking the gun out.
Where such a large number of people and journalists and news organisations always treat you with suspicion. You have to fight so hard for people to not assume that you are a terrorist or a kid fucker. And then finally, you get your moment. Your opportunity to show that you're not that. You're all right. Just as are lots of your friends and your relatives. And right at that moment, your entire identity is erased like Sandra Bullock in the fucking net.
Very brave person.
Australian
man that did that.
Now, of course, the story was uniquely grotesque, but quickly became one we had seen many times before. Something horrendous happened. The right-wing disinformation system kicked in. You had people exaggerating figures. You had other people giving credit to imaginary people. You had other people omitting key details and specifics, or in Fox News' case, telling their viewers that this all took place in lawless Britain. Authorities in the UK couldn't stop the shooters firing in broad daylight for what seemed like an eternity, so this man stepped in. Again. This man. Just a man. But yeah, in Britain, authorities in Britain couldn't stop him. Although, weirdly, it is kind of accurate. Authorities in Britain couldn't They couldn't respond to the ongoing, unfolding situation out there. What were they playing at? And so, what have we learned this time, guys? What are our takeaways? Well, we learned that, once again, in the immediate aftermath of a racially sensitive bloodbath where an information vacuum exists, the far right dive in. We learned that, again, an unregulated X has played a major role in spreading disinformation. Nothing is being done in terms of regulating the social media space. In fact, the government don't seem to care that fake anti-Labour videos were viewed 1.2 billion times this year. And they're doing precisely nothing about it. Literally nothing. But most importantly, guys, above all else, we learned that the most important thing at Christmas time is what you get, not what you give. And so in that spirit, now I must go, for I grow tired of giving you this and receiving nothing in return. Although I will just close out here by asking you very nicely to join the Patreon. How's that? Does that weave in nicely? Sign up for the Patreon, join the channel. Our next in-person meetup is Saturday the 31st of January. Until next time, see you later.